Welcome to This Week in Hastings Headline History, where we take a look back at what was making news in Hastings, Florida, over a century ago. These are stories directly out of the pages of the Hastings Herald, which was published weekly in the early 1900s. So sit back and enjoy as I share with you a few of the stories from the October 24th, 1919 edition. Prominent Hastings men interested in oil wells. There is much interest in this locality concerning oil developments in West Florida, as some of the prominent men of Hastings are deeply involved in an oil project in that part of the state. Doing business under the name of the Home Oil Company, these men have leased over 12,000 acres in that section of the country and are now actively engaged in prospecting on their holdings. Another company has started to drill near Clarksville, about 5 miles below Blunston in Calhoun County. And the driller, who has had experience in oil well drilling in Texas, states that indications point to the finding of oil much nearer the surface than is found in Texas, as a certain kind of sand peculiar to oil land has been discovered at about 130 feet, which does not show up in Texas fields until a depth of 250 feet is reached. This work is going upon land immediately adjacent to the property leased by the Hastings Company. These reports have stimulated the lease business in that section, and every parcel of land in the near vicinity of the oil developments that is available is being leased out by outside interests. All of these developments in oil prospecting are of intense interest to the citizens of Hastings who are involved in the project in that part of the state, and it will doubtless not be long until the Home Oil Company will be in a position to tell whether their efforts may bear fruit or not. Census takers in St. Johns County are urgently needed. Persons who wish to fill the places of census enumerators in this town and in the rural districts of St. Johns County must write at once to J.J. Emery, supervisor of the census, Federal Building, Jacksonville, Florida, and procure blank applications and full information as to this employment. There is good opportunity for earning in the important public service. The work of taking the census will be done during January, but the applications are being taken immediately. Intelligent women as well as men are eligible for this service. To such men and women, the taking of the U.S. Census will be a real patriotic service, apart from the compensation earned. The latter, according to the statement of the director of the census, is estimated to amount to an average of $100 for the entire force of 80,000 enumerators. The Navy to release 3 million pounds of sugar to the public. Advised that the Navy Department has in reserve 9 million pounds of sugar, Secretary Daniels announced he will release 1/3 of the stock, or 3 million pounds, to the public to be used to relieve the situation resulting from a nationwide shortage of the commodity. The present supply of the Navy, Secretary Daniels says, is sufficient for 6 months, as only a 3-month surplus usually has been kept on hand. Mr. Daniels indicates it would be unjust to retain more than that amount now, when the entire country is experiencing a shortage. Bridge across Smith Creek reopens traffic on Dixie Highway. This newspaper is in receipt of an interesting letter from the Honorable Chris Codrington, publisher of the DeLand Daily News and a member of the Board of County Commissioners in Volusia County, in which official information is given that the Smith Creek Bridge across the East Coast Canal just below the Knox and Beatty Grove has been restored and rebuilt and is now being used for traffic, thus relieving the very unpleasant situation created by the collapse of this bridge several weeks ago and the necessary resort to an uncompleted detour. A local resident has reported on the bridge. Mr. M.A. Pelliser passed over the bridge Sunday while motoring to Ormond, and he says it is a strong iron structure. He also reports work moving satisfactorily on the road to Daytona. Bogged all night. Frank Parker and Thomas Passetti have demonstrated that a motorist may be happy while his car is bogged to the running board. They motored to Okeechobee, leaving here on Saturday morning. But between Sebring and the town of Okeechobee, they ran into a pond on the road, and the mud herein was so deep the car began to settle. And as it was dark, there was but little chance of working to advantage. So, making the best of the situation, they made themselves as comfortable as the conditions permitted, and their snores soon mingled with the noises of the wild. Dawn discovered them up and at work. In the despised palmetto stumps, they found material that enabled them to build foundation upon which to extricate the car. They jacked up the auto and corduroyed a road to terra firma. They completed their trip and started on the homeward journey, arriving here Sunday night none the worse for their unusual nocturnal rest. From the editorial section, the Vacation Installment Plan. Educators who feel very keenly that our children waste a great deal of time during the long summer vacations are putting forth a new plan that probably will not meet with very much joy generally, certainly not here in the South. The proposal is to divide the school year into 4 terms of 12 weeks each, with a week's vacation at the end of each term. 9 months is earnestly desired in most communities of Florida as a school term, and 10 is even advocated in some. But no one has gone so far in this section of the country as to suggest 11 months, even though it be broken into 3-month periods with a week of respite following each. The summer vacation of 4 or 3 months, or in many northern communities of 2 months, affords time for lengthy sojourn out to the shore or into the mountains, and people are so accustomed to making their schedules of living with this thought in view that one can scarcely imagine a month's vacation enjoyed on the installment plan ever becoming popular. The first fruits of the season. When we read of 150 carloads of citrus fruits being shipped from the southern part of the state, we hope that the oranges and grapefruits that go forth in such large numbers into the northern cities have been permitted to gather a little more of the Florida sunshine than have those displayed for sale in our local fruit stores. These are too much tinged with green to look as Florida's finely colored golden citrus fruit should look, and the placing of oranges and grapefruit on the market at too early a date is greatly to be deplored by those desirous of holding the standard of citrus culture in the state at the highest degree of perfection. The anxiety of some for quick returns on citrus crops, which permits the shipment at too early a date, is oftentimes detrimental to growers all over the state and cannot be guarded against too carefully. Usual acreage to be planted to potatoes. Charlie Kettle, who keeps his eye closely on the situation at Hastings and the potato belt in general, states that the farmers will plant the usual acreage during the coming winter. He estimates that about 16,000 acres will be planted. Heavy rains have retarded the working of the soil, but the farmers are taking advantage of the clear days to turn the ground, and if they are favored with a week or 2 of dry weather, they will get the fields in good condition. In the Hastings belt, the drainage facilities will be improved by the dredging of Deep Creek by a government dredge. Individual farms have also been given better drainage by deepening and clearing of ditches. Good prices for potatoes are assured, as the western crop has been a failure, and there has been very little storage for release in the spring. Ice is pure. A report was received this morning by the city manager from the State Board of Health on a sample of ice sent to Jacksonville for analysis. The report stated that no gas-forming organism was found. There were no intestinal organisms discovered, and the report concluded by stating that the ice is safe for human consumption from a bacteriological standpoint. Home talent. Rumor had it that after the busy season was over, the people of Hastings would arrange for some kind of a home talent entertainment. Now the time of year has come. It is just between seasons, but it seems that the subject has been dropped. There is nothing more entertaining than a good home talent show, one with spice and vim and lots of laughs. In the past, it seems that most of the local plays have indicated that Hastings' dramatic talent is decidedly above average and have always brought out a good crowd. If it is necessary, a set of costumes and other stage paraphernalia could be rented to enable the local talent to put on a show out of the ordinary. How about it? Have you thought it over this year? Sure, the proceeds can go to some of the societies or clubs here, and at the same time, furnish good, clean amusement. Safety First campaign is now in progress. Starting on Saturday, the 2-week Safety First campaign is in progress on the Florida East Coast Railroad as all other railroads in the United States. Every employee of the road has received a circular letter asking his cooperation in preventing accidents. Put on their mettle, the men learn to exercise excessive care in their work, and in this way, the habit of studying the cause and prevention of accidents is inoculated, and the beneficial effects of the 2 weeks campaign becomes permanent. The campaign will continue until the last of October. Chinese pass through. A train filled with Chinese passed through here on Saturday afternoon en route to Cuba. They are to work in the sugarcane fields. The Chinamen were closely guarded to prevent their escape from the train. They were brought across the continent from the Pacific coast, where they disembarked upon arrival from the Orient. Under an agreement between the United States and the Cuban government, The Chinese laborers are permitted to travel through the United States, but every precaution is taken to prevent their escape while in this country. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Hastings Headline History. This podcast was brought to you by Presenting the Past, bringing history back to the present through historic presentations and the sale of treasures from days gone by. This episode was produced by me, Michelle Murillo, with the aid of vintage copies of the Hastings Herald. And to wrap up this week in Hastings Headline History, how about a tune from the time? Here's Mandy by Van and Schenk.
I was strolling down one evening by the silvery moon. I could hear somebody singing a familiar tune. So I stopped a while to listen. Not a word I wanted to miss. It was just somebody serenading, something like this. Mandy, there's a minister handy, and it sure would be dandy if we let him make a fee. So don't you linger, here's the ring for your finger, if they did a humdinger. Come along and let the wedding chime, bring happy time for Mandy and me. There will be some jubilation for the happy pair. Yes, the best in all creation. Joy is in the air. There'll be music at the station for to speed them on their way. There will be some celebration on their wedding day. Oh, what a wonderful day to be the parson in pay. I'm feeling kind of nervous to hear the wedding service. Now we'll hear the wedding bells, soon we'll hear the baby yells. Gracious and Mrs. by dear, I had the ring never fear. What a fine ovation from all of our relations, the sister and brother, and Mandy and me. Mandy, there's a minister handy, and it sure would be dandy if we let him make a fee. So don't you linger, here's the ring for your finger, if they did a humdinger. Come along and let the wedding chime, bring happy time for Mandy and me.